Well, ladies and gentlemen of the footballing universe, it has been a while since we talked about the men's game, let alone football generally. But since then, well, what have you missed? You've missed empires collapsing in the shape of the Premier League now under the cosh of dirty Saudi money. All their players are going there. All the stars are going Norm Macdonald style. And supposedly, this is the start of the new guard, like your Newcastles, your Brightons, your Aston Villas, about to uproot the old. It's a time of influx and chaos, Neil, or at least that's what I'm trying to put across here for what is going to be probably a very mundane year of football. But
Yeah, that's
to
it
be
for
fair,
all the tortured metaphors of this year now. It's probably going to be like one of the most boring seasons on record now.
it is like I think I read this somewhere. This is the first time in 5 years where this is actually going to be a regulation season of football. Like there's
Yeah.
actually no interruptions, there's no issues, no COVID, no Qatar World Cup stinking up the place. This is just a normal season of football, and in a weird way, I'm not even surprised that there's already been like two ACL injuries before the season's even started, because every footballer's bodies are just going finally relaxing for the first time, and someone will just go and snap. It's like ah. That summer break was so nice. Do you know what I love as well? A year break.
Absolutely.
So,
You finish your exams.
yeah, exactly. You're just like downtime. That's it. I'm gonna stay on the unemployment line for you. Yeah, it's a footballer's gap year. That's what it is. And anyway, so we are back on the Liquid Football Podcast, with absolutely no agenda planned outside of some predictions at the end of the show. Tune in for that, by the way. But we are gonna, I suppose, kind of scope out the shop for what we think the season's going to pan out as. There's no real changes in terms of the structure. The Premier League is still the Premier League. The BT Sports is gone. They're now TNT Sports. Peter Walton has been thrown out and presumably hired by Premier Sports or something along those lines. I'm sure he'll find someone to agree with him. Sky are now going down the route of Countdown to Footballing YouTube, which has actually made my appendix burst early, which is cool. Um, but overall, I suppose the biggest change, and the reason I start off the podcast like this, is because the Champions League is changing its format next year.
Yeah.
To the Swiss model. Now, why is that important, Jonathan? I hear you asking. Because it means that for the most part, it's still a top four. However, because England and Spain are typically the best in Europe over a season, they will be now entitled to a bonus, I suppose, a wildcard entry for all intents and purposes. And once basically the English or the Spanish perform well, they get those two spots. Now, in theory, last season, it would have been actually in Italy and England, like first and second, would have got those two free spots. But on average, it's usually those two countries. So in essence, let's just say if you have your regulation for English team in the semi-finals, potentially finals, whichever of each competition, you're looking at a top five this year. And for certain clubs in that mixture, Neil, that's kind of a blessing in disguise. If anything, a godsend, because fifth place is almost like a dirty word for some clubs. But now suddenly it's like potentially access to the promised land, you know?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's just more matches. That's what they want. They want more teams in it, which because that's more revenue. So it's nothing really to do with the football. It's all about the money. And it's all about how they get their Super League, but not are similar but legally distinct to the Super League that won't have fans, lighting flares outside of our fucking homes and screaming at us at 3 in the
Super
morning.
League Light, yeah,
Super League Light, the SLL. But hey, look, it is what it is. I'm like, these are literal billionaires toying with football, so fuck it,
And us complaining about that will be a running theme of the season, I can assure you. But
in all fairness, if that was the only thing we had to complain about, I'd actually be quite happy.
Yeah, that's actually a decent deal, isn't it? Just like a whole lot of mad cunts with money just trying to control the game.
It's not even in the top five of shit to complain about. Absolutely.
That's very true. That's very true. But in any case, so we do start off I suppose, the Premier League reviewing who we think is going to win it. And I suppose perhaps I'm talking out of turn here in regard to title contenders, but it's very hard to look past Man City, even though they have shuffled their deck a little bit in this kind of like what they do tend to do with squad progression, they know who they're selling on before they do it. Type of routine. So, granted, Saudi money has helped a lot with that because now they've offloaded Mahrez and Gundogan, and maybe it's just me, but it seems like their signings are very like they're spending because they can, if you know what I mean. They've because they've practically won everything bar the League Cup. They can justifiably say, "Oh, do you know what? Let's just spend 200 million because we can." You know, like let's show off how good we are to get as close to this footballing nirvana as possible. The problem is that, and again, maybe you might agree with me, Neil, but that football Nirvana is fucking boring. Like, I've never been more bored to see a team conquer a treble before. Like, and I've said this last time we talked about
absolutely. He's just going pure strangulation football. So his 3-box-3 is just gonna be it's basically a chokehold of a formation. So yeah, that's he's just going to try and choke it off. The key way to stop the other guys from scoring on you is to keep the ball all the fucking time. So, and the emergence of the 3-box-3 formation, because it's so powerful against teams that counterattack, means they can't even really be hit on the counter anymore. So fuck. Like the one thing about like City was, you could kind of nail them on the counter, a la Spurs, and I think Brighton
especially
did as well.
Spurs with Son on the break was the kind of the kryptonite to that
exactly. So like
team.
Son's not really gonna function well when he's being like essentially marked from all 4 fucking corners. And then he's got 3 centre mids to there's 3 centre backs to deal with. Yeah, fuck it. It's the only thing I'm not too fussed about it, because like other teams are doing it, like we're doing it as well, but we're kind of doing it. We're doing our own variant.
You're doing it your own way. Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of patience to it.
I like the fact that we're going our own way with that by doubling down on our cutting in fullbacks. Instead of 3 centre backs. So like, nah, we're gonna have both of our fullbacks cut into the midfield. So fuck yeah, see how that goes. It's not just Zinchenko doing it; it's now fucking Timber or White coming in. So yeah, we'll see how that happens.
Yeah, like I mean, it's like as I said, the biggest thing really for like most of the league is just trying to find a solution, find a way to beat this Man City team, because as you said, a lot has been made of the system that between Pep and Arteta has kind of been pioneered, if you like. Because I'm trying to remember who actually started it first last season. I feel like Arteta did. And then Pep kind of did it better with better players, essentially. And like naturally, when you have like access to very good like ball playing defenders like Stones and Ake and stuff like that, and Akanji, I suppose, to a lesser extent, you obviously are going to make that system work better. Which is why kind of intriguing to me now that like with we'll say Arsenal, for example, like they would be perhaps recognized, seeing that they finished second last season, perhaps recognized as the best challengers at the moment for Man City. Their signings have been excellent this season, I find. I think their business has been really good. I think they still might need one more offensive player, but I think overall they've done very, very well plugging the gaps that were there beforehand. How do you make of Arsenal this season? And do you think like they have found a workaround with Man City, or is it this a case of like seeing how many points can they hoover up in the time along with the Champions League as well?
Yeah, I think it's basically what we've just addressed, all of the failings of the team. Now, the team didn't have tremendous amount of failings last season, but it was a definite petering off towards the end. There was a thin squad. We decided to roll the dice with regards to injuries. Didn't work. And now we've addressed all that. We've got huge amounts of cover at most positions. Our central midfield has been revamped now with Rice and Havertz. And like we got them all in early. So they've all been pre-seasoned in, they've all been blooded, they've all hit the ground running. Funnily enough, out of all of our new signings, the one I'm really impressed by and the one I'm really looking forward to seeing more of is Timber.
Timber seems to have caught people's imagination a good bit.
Fucking excellent. He looks fucking brilliant. He really, really does. So assured, like really assured and calm on the ball, like proper look up, pick out the pass, brilliant, strong runner, battling hard. When we were playing City, like Walker got no change out of him on that leg because he was played at left back against in the Community Shield against City, and Walker just could not get anything by him. I think I saw Walker attempt like 4 crosses over the course of the game, and every single one of them just came off Timber and went for the corner. Like, and that's grand. Like we fucking mopped that up. Got big guys at the back now, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just the team's almost where it wants to be. I think a good phrase I read there is that Arteta's finally got the squad to the point where he can improve it with minor tweaks rather than overhauls, and that's what I kind of like.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. We're getting Raya in on a loan deal with an option to buy, and that's brilliant because Turner's off to Forest. So that means both of our goalkeepers, there's really no drop off if our keepers go out, which is just, I can't really remember a team really going with, no, we actually do have 2 first team goalkeepers now. We do that. We now have that. I was like, this is fucking crazy. I don't really remember this. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I'm really looking forward to this. If it all goes well and it hits the ground running, and granted, we really hit the ground running last season because I think we got 50 out of a potential 57 points before the World Cup dropped the kibosh on everything. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, it's intriguing. Like I think like there's certainly an air of optimism solely because Arsenal haven't really rested on they obviously had known that they had the issues with the squads because I don't think even you guys would have expected a second place finish last season. Like that was these are ahead of schedule in a sense, but now they just are here and you have the money to back it up between Champions League and having the Cronkies start to play ball a little bit, which is always nice. At least you have a way of consolidating the success you had last season. So the 3 signings, like obviously Raya being like the second choice goalkeeper is like as great as best as you can when it comes to second choice keeper. But the 3 players who I suppose like systematically are going to be the most used to you are Timber, Rice, and Havertz. So like Rice, I think we is kind of prerequisite. Really, you know what you're getting from him, and Timber seems to be like ideal for this. If we're still working with this system that is supposedly unbeatable, like centre back and right back, you can't really go wrong with Timber, and he also has played number 6, so he's so versatile. He can do anything in that role. For me, as an outsider looking in, the real question mark is on Havertz because, yes, we can agree that he was probably played out of position at Chelsea, being played as number 9, didn't really suit him. When he was as a 10, he was a bit better. And now Arsenal are trying to deploy him essentially the counterpart, the complementary part to Odegaard up servicing the front 3.
Yeah, kind of like a left 8, which he says is his ideal position. And that's the one he played in and got them, and that Tuchel played him in and got the most out of him. He was playing as a kind of a left 8, if you want to use that kind of wonky, wanky term.
Yeah. And naturally that is still kind of like, so essentially with a box midfield, that would be, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong here, so it would become Rice, either Partey or Timber, dealer's choice. You'd have Havertz and Odegaard would be the box. Would that be the fair assessment? Like,
so yeah, I reckon so. But then, well, fuck knows what's gonna happen. Like, it depends on where, like, because if he deploys both Zinchenko and Timber, like they'll move in from the side.
Yeah.
So they'll come up from the fullbacks and they'll cut into the midfield, and that'll push that up further. So who knows what's gonna do? Like if he plays White's more of a chalk in the boots, overlapping fullback. So yeah, that'll probably be your 3-box 3. But if he's playing both Zinchenko and Timber at the same time, with those 2 cutting into the midfield, you could see like a 2 at the back, and fucking everybody into midfield and everybody up forward, like pretty much the all-out attack on FIFA kind of mode shit.
Yeah, very true, very true. That's the Hail Mary on Football Manager type of shit. Exactly, yeah,
but it's not really that much of an incredible gamble because all those players have incredible recovery, great defending, bar maybe Zinchenko. Like you've got that 2 at the back is Gabriel and Saliba, and fuck me, like Saliba just seemed to have gotten better somehow. I don't understand it. Like he was so fucking good in that City game. And he's just a brilliant defender. Everybody loves him. And he signed down to a new long-term deal. So is Gabriel Magalhaes. And it's just like that's two centre backs that, yeah, they can just cover back themselves while everybody else marauds forward and just tears the opposition to shreds. It's a real. Arteta made a big point of saying that unpredictability was going to be the key cornerstone of his team. You know, so when we say, "Oh, we know that you're going to line up 3-box-3," and you'll probably be right. But with Arsenal now, I'm not really sure how we're going to line up half the time, and I kind of like that.
If you were at the helm, what, like, taking kind of your own kind of personal like favorites out of it, like what would you say is the actual best 11, and which way would you play? Would you play the way Arsenal playing now, or would you tweak it? How would you beat a Man City team like this?
Well, the Man City team now, like that was, I'd feel that team, you know, great defense that we had. So we had our back line, obviously Ramsdale in goal. So our back line was Timber, Gabriel, Saliba, and White. Then you got your midfield pivot of Partey and Rice. And then up further, you've got Odegaard, then Saka and Martinelli, obviously on the wings, just ripping it up. Havertz up front. Now, maybe instead of Havertz, you'd probably maybe feel Jesus as well. It's just weird to see because they both offer you such different things. But yeah, I think I'd stick with the double pivot of Partey and Rice in the midfield. Give that lovely screen, that defensive solidity. If I was playing City, but if I'm playing like, let's say Forest deploy a low block, or teams that deploy a low block, I'll probably dispense with either one or two of. I'll probably dispense with one of either Partey or Rice.
Yeah,
and field both Havertz and Jesus. You know, more of a lock picking kind of thing. Just have one kind of a single pivot in the middle at the base of midfield, so that everybody can get forward.
Yeah, like I think I suppose that was like an issue you had last season, was like coming a bit undone towards the end, mainly because, again, injuries were an issue, but also like kind of like Arsenal didn't really have a plan B. And this often happens though. Like sometimes you get to a good formula and you tinker too much and like everything kind of falls apart, or vice versa. You stick to something so rigidly and teams figure you out. So I suppose the unpredictability is one big thing for Arteta as well. It helps him now that you have the squad to do it. The question is, do you reckon Arsenal need because obviously Jesus is injured again now to start the season off. Balogun looks potentially off for a big money sale. You surely need a striker to back up Nketiah, right? Like an actual out and out number 9.
Well, Jesus is only out for a few weeks. And yeah, Nketiah can do the job there, you know. I mean, he just wasn't fielded against City because, like, again, to put an out-and-out striker into the squad, you kind of have to dispense with one of the midfielders.
Yeah.
And that, you know, you'll only really do that against a team that you're going to go, well, these are going to low block against us. We don't really have to worry about that. I don't need that double screen at the back, at the base of my midfield. Whereas against City, you definitely fucking do.
Yeah.
You absolutely fucking do, you know? So yeah, I think like there's going to be lots of game time. Like everybody's going to get game time. So I don't think we need any kind of real backup to Jesus. If we did, we wouldn't have signed Nketiah to a long-term deal that we did. We just gone out and bought somebody. Like, if anything, this summer has shown that we're not blah, blah, blah. I speak words good. Then we're not afraid to splash cash if we look at a player and go, oh, we need that guy.
Yeah, that's fair enough. So overall, an area of cautious optimism. How do you think because I think Champions League wise, like I think your coefficient is still quite good. So I think you're going to be pot 2, if I'm not mistaken. Pot 3, pot 2, yeah. Because you're second in the league as well. So that will give up some good European games. I mean, again, between the Premier League and the Champions League, naturally, like I think Arsenal will be looking to prioritize both in a very weird sense.
Absolutely, yeah.
But in a way, like how would you assess Arsenal now amongst like the European teams? Like now that they're kind of joining the big party for the first time for a long time, how do you think that's going to affect the side? Do you think we'll welcome it, or which way?
Oh, they're gonna love it. they're going to be chomping at the bit. They're going to be frotting at the gash to get at those players now. And as well, like there's a good bit of Champions League experience in the squad, so it's not as if like we're not going to run out there with like reckless self-abandonment and just start pegging it all over the pitch. Oh, the Champions League, woo! But I think it's gonna really fire the guys up. And yeah, there is a definite aim to prioritize both competitions, given that we're getting in essentially 2 first-string keepers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I reckon like Arteta's going for like, no, we're going for everything. You know, we're going deep runs and everything. All we're taking all the we're taking on all motherfuckers up in here. Like yeah. Hence the depth, the increase in depth, particularly with like versatile players, so players who can play more. Like there's very few players in this team that can really only do one position. Like fucking even the goalkeepers aren't even that. Like Raya was once described by Pep Guardiola as a 10, as a number 10, as a number 10 with gloves on. You know, so even the goalkeepers can play multiple positions. They won't, but you know what I mean. So I'd say maybe like probably only Rice can even, and even then, maybe Partey and Rice are the only 2 players that are like, no, we're only really gonna play this one position here. Whereas everybody else is like, nah, man, fuck knows where you're getting deployed.
That makes sense though, because they like for them to really work, they need to be rigid. They are the 2.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And the centre back, same with Gabriel and Saliba. But like they're brilliant players everywhere else. So that's what I'm liking this. Like we're definitely going all out. I think we're going to surprise a lot of people, and we're going to love it. We're going to really really enjoy it. I see us getting to the quarters.
Yeah,
I see us hitting the quarterfinals.
Considering the class this year in the Champions League, it's not a traditional Champions League because obviously depending on how you look at it, either the World Cup or just overall leagues being kind of like in different transitions, shall we say. Instead of seeing your Lyons and Marseilles, you're seeing Lens and Stade Rennais. You're seeing Union Berlin instead of your Leverkusens, for example. It's a very different Champions League this year, and in a way like that, kind of like that probably benefits the big teams a good bit, but it also means that like there's an opportunity here for the likes of an Arsenal, the likes of shall we say an Inter Milan, maybe because they got to the final last year, to be able to give the Champions League a really good shake of it. If you're like Barca and Real Madrid, you're thinking there's none of the, like, Liverpool aren't here. Thank fuck, I can actually challenge for this Champions League, kind of way. Or likewise with like Munich thinking like, oh, if Man City can get pushed aside, we can take Arsenal, kind of way. So there's a kind of there's a vying for position there a little bit.
It's going to be interesting, Dominic. It's probably going to be one of the more interesting, not just because Arsenal are now in it.
Yeah.
Although there is that. But it's probably, for me, it's going to be one of the more interesting Champions League draws when it kicks off. I think when is the draw done?
I think the playoffs are the playoffs are still happening. So I think the draw is like the end of the month. It's usually like the last week of August.
Sure.
So then where basically who you're and indeed all the European draws are that weekend as well. So we'll all know before the transfer window closes how everyone is fixed. In any case, switching on then to the rest of the league, then we're in the Champions League buzz at the moment. So let's talk about the other 2 teams in there. We have Newcastle and we have Manchester United. So 2 very different, shall we say, outfits at the moment, considering one has stupid amounts of money but is being very smart in not spending it. And then we have a club that doesn't have the money but is still spending it anyway. In Man United, a team that has like pretty much the entire summer has been like dominated by a potential takeover that hasn't happened, whether it be like between Jim Radcliffe and his merry men of super fans, or a miscellaneous, mysterious Qatari sheik who is also a super fan, but no one knows who he is.
Or if he even exists.
Or even if he exists, he could be a deep fake. We don't know. He still could very well be Dom Jolly doing a fucking Trigger Happy tribute. It's entirely possible. But what's interesting is that like United have very clearly they spent a lot of money. It goes without saying, but they've just spent it on like integral players. So like they've spent a lot of money on Mount, for example, perhaps just for fear of him going to any other club in England. Then they spend a lot more money on Højlund from Atalanta. Then they spend a lot more money on Mount, perhaps just for fear of him going to any other club in England. Then they spend a lot more money on Højlund from Atalanta. Then they spend a lot more money on Mount, perhaps just for fear of him going to any other club in England. which I think is quite a risky investment, kind of on par with Darwin. If it pays off, it'll look brilliant, but if it doesn't, you look like an idiot. And then you got the defensive editions of this has got names completely gone out of my head.
Onana.
Onana, that's the goalkeeper. Yeah. So I've drawn a complete blank on Man United all of a sudden. They sent another player. I can't remember who it is. Jeez, it's embarrassing now, isn't it? But yeah, anyway, Onana obviously to replace De Gea, which was I think like I feel like that was a very fucking strange week where it looked that for all intents and purposes that like De Gea wanted to stay, but then they just just didn't return his calls. It was a very, very, very odd moment there. I found.
Yeah, it was weird because they said to him, right, so he's coming into the final year, and then they wanted him to stay, so they offered him a contract, but they were like, look, we're going to offer you lower because he was on nearly 400k a week, and like you're not getting that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So if whatever reports are true, they choose to believe, the second contract they offered him was somewhere in the region of about 230k a week, and he accepted that. Yeah. So he signed that one and then went on holiday. I think he went to a wedding. He was at a wedding. And then he was midway through the wedding when he got word that Man U had actually reneged on the contract. They didn't sign it. And they were like, oh, we can't actually offer you this because you're going to be a backup keeper, and we can't have a backup keeper on nearly a quarter of a million quid a week, because that's fucking lunacy.
Mm-hmm.
So they offered him a third contract, which was, I think, somewhere in the region of about 140, maybe 220k a week, which is still actually kind of high for a backup keeper.
It's very high for a backup keeper, yeah.
Yeah, but it still represents like a nearly 60% wage cut for them. And then he went, nah, go fuck yourselves. No, I'm not doing this. Like, you're taking the absolute piss. And so he just didn't sign it.
I was trying to remember which defender United were looking to sign, and it was, in fact, the legend that is Johnny Evans.
Oh, yeah, they got Evans back in, yeah.
It wasn't quite the marquee signing that I was thinking of, but they are still in the market for but it seems like McTominay and both Fred and McTominay, Zinedine Vanera, lads. Maguire's leaving, McTominay's leaving, Fred. It seems like this.
I cannot believe they got 30 million quid for Maguire. Oh my fucking God.
It is insanity.
I cannot believe that.
If anyone ever says that the English tax isn't real, fucking look at Harry Maguire and you tell me.
Fuck, like that is something else. Like that's how you know that. I don't know whether or not that's a case of just Man U being just exceptionally good at selling players, or West Ham being like just unbelievably desperate for a defender.
I get the feeling it's more of the West Ham side than anything else, because I don't think any other team would have actually considered even paying 3 million for Maguire going with the form he's in. He is obviously better than the 3 million player at the moment, but it's the sheer audacity.
He didn't play last season. Like he's fourth, but he's not even fourth string. He's like fifth string. Like, it's insane. Like he only plays when literally every other defender goes down.
And even when he does, oh my God, it's terrible. He is.
Yeah, exactly. It's awful. He got the captaincy taken off him. Like, he's just not what he's openly just not wanted.
Yeah.
And they got 30 million for him. I was like, Jesus Christ. That's West Ham, right? And I was saying this, I was bleating on about this in our fucking WhatsApp groups. That's West Ham broadcasting the entire Arsenal Rice deal. That's them just going out. I guarantee you, if they'd have done this is what I said. What they should have done with the Rice deal is they should have done that completely low key, like literally have nobody know about it. Just get a couple of executives in a room, in a hotel room, one time. They bash it out. They agree to the deal. They go, right, it never leaves this room. Then they go out, and then what they do then is they finalize all the deals to spend that 105. Because I guarantee if they'd have gone to Man U and gone, right, we're thinking about Maguire. What do you reckon? If they hadn't bragged about the fact that they were in Arsenal for nearly over 100 million quid, Man U would have been like, fucking take it, 10 bob and a pickled egg. Take the motherfucker. Like, take him, But now like the season's about to kick off. They haven't been able to sign anyone. I'm like, yeah, they've got now a triple signing in the works now because people are looking at them and going, we're not dealing with you. We know you have the money.
Yeah,
Here is our price.
don't chat shit, mate. Yeah,
exactly. You're chatting shit, like. But I guarantee you, had they done that without bragging about the fact that they've now got 9 figures, they'd have gotten. I'd say they'd have gotten Maguire for half the price, maybe even 10 million. If they'd have gone to Man United and gone, right, 10 million, he's with us. How about it? They'd have gotten their arm taken off the shoulder. Same with maybe they probably would have gotten maybe not. Actually, yeah, they probably wouldn't have gotten that much wiggle room with the Ward-Prowse deal because Southampton were really desperate to keep him. But all the other deals that they're looking at to make for players, like they've just been shot down because they've tried to negotiate with the teams. No teams are negotiating with them. The teams are like, "Oh, you want this guy? 35 million."
yeah.
What? He hasn't played in like 19 years. 35 million. But like, you don't like him. You have him scrubbing the boots. 19 million. He doesn't even have a squad number. 35 million. You know, like that's the thing. Like,
it is sour grapes in sense when they know they've got 100 million for Rice and they're potentially getting 100 million for Paqueta, who I'll be honest with you is not a fucking 100 million pound player. He's just not. Absolutely, objectively not.
I heard 70. I heard they're prepping a 70 million pound deal for Paqueta.
Yeah, but even then, that's not worth the money. Like let's be fair here. Like he is there to make up the numbers midfield potentially so that Calvin Phillips can be like thrown out the scrap. Like because let's be realistic. The limiting factor for Man City is the homegrown quota, and now they brought Cole Palmer into the team, who's a homegrown player, so they can get away with it. That's why they're looking at Michael Olise as well because he counts as homegrown because he came up through the Reading academy. So
somebody looking to buy Palmer off them.
I think either West Ham were looking for a loan deal. I think it was West Ham or Leeds. It was one of those ones. They were looking for a loan deal off him, but I think City will probably keep him solely because again the homegrown thing they won't bite him in the arse in the end. But yeah, like I think when we're talking about United though, like I think the departure of the most tedious 3 they've had in quite some time in Fred, McTominay, and Maguire, it's kind of like almost like a symbolic thing for them where this is finally the end of that potential part of the United history where it wasn't pretty, it was very unpleasant looking, and it got them some success, but it could have been more. Now that being said, there's potentially more coming in. The likes of Amrabat seems to be likely at this stage, potentially Lavia because he seems on the market generally. So there's definitely more call for defensive midfielders at United. So the business isn't over yet for sure. My question would be that like, how far can this United team go in a sense? Because they spend a lot of money on players. They're hoping that this is all going to work out for them. And is third the best they can do, or are they challengers? Are they title contenders?
I reckon third is the best they can do. And that'll be a lot harder than a lot of people's predictions because they think it's not going to work. I think it will work. Because Ten Hag, you know, I think it'll work for Ten Hag. I think Højlund he's really, really young, so they're just going to bed him in. Like, he might, like, if he lights up, that's great. If he doesn't, they're like, well, you've got a season under your belt. Like, Højlund's a project for the future. He is not there to hit the ground running. He's only played like 1 season in the top of any European league, and he scored only 9 fucking goals. So it's a project, you know. Ten Hag's like, we can't buy a ready-made, ready to hit the ground fucking striker without spending absolute stupid cash. Although now the fact that Kane's off to pissing off, although probably I guarantee they probably Spurs wouldn't have sold Kane to United for 100 million euros.
Don't think so. No.
Like 100 million pounds, please. Like if you want him, like fucking smacking home hat tricks for you guys. So yeah, like I think Ten Hag will keep it all together, keep it going. And yeah, I think I reckon I've got them down as third in my prediction. People have them in top 4 because generally the faith is there in Ten Hag because he's really fucking good at this job.
He is, and I think it helped that, like, even though they had a very poor start, I think a lot of the issues that United had last season were very much like the reasoning for it was because of Ronaldo throwing the toys out of the pram, and all the other kind of like Ten Hag realizing that he is managing calamities like Maguire and McTominay and so forth. And I think that in the end, the biggest outlier of that whole season, like post Ronaldo, shall we say, the biggest outlier that season was the 7-0 at Anfield, which was again just like a moment of madness on the United side because they just lost their heads, completely got duped on a tactical level and had no response to it. So they would figure that again, you'd like to think United have learned from that. I know we have. Which is basically give Darwin Núñez whatever he fucking wants. But in essence, really, one thing I would say, the biggest surprise I had from this window, and it's gone under the radar completely, is that United sold Anthony Elanga in the summer, and I was looking at that thinking, okay, you have a lot of poor players on the right flank. You have Rashford or Sancho. You've got Anthony, who at the moment did not cut the mustard. They have been basically 180 million worth of bench warmers, essentially. Not first team players, not playing good enough to make to the first team. When you have an opportunity to bleed a new talent, again, Garnacho is great. He can play like either flank, quite honestly. We know how well Rashford is as a wide forward. When you have a homegrown talent like Elanga, who even when he was under in the season with Ragnick was playing tremendously well, and Ten Hag just didn't seem to like him for whatever reason. I just feel like that is just a big mistake on United's side because this is an opportunity, again, with Champions League football, with all the other extra games they have at their disposal this year that are hopefully staying Champions League football and not just dropping out to Europa League. Like, there's such an issue on that right side for me. It's between that and the right backs. Like, I'd be keeping all the wingers they can because in the end, the team is just going to be so biased towards one side because that's where all the good players are. Does that kind of make sense, or am I kind of overthinking that on United side?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Like, well, what you said makes sense. Their sale of Elanga makes no sense, or doesn't make it a huge amount because it wasn't as if they sold them for stupid, huge, like flipping great watches of cash. They didn't sell them for a huge amount of money, so like maybe something was going on there. Maybe. I don't know, possibly, but like I don't understand what would have been going on. He was getting game time. He's getting a lot more game time than players his age usually get at fucking United.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I didn't think too much of it at the time, but because I reckoned, yeah, there's something gone there. He's probably requested to leave or some shit like that, or they've had a falling out or some shit, because it did make no sense. Like he seemed quite suited to Ten Hag football. And even if he wasn't really, like, he can be trained, he could be taught. The players
21, yeah, you can coach him.
Fuck him on, exactly, yeah, on a nothing contract probably, like so, like you can keep him around, and even if he still doesn't work out, flog him later. But I didn't understand that at all. So I agree with you, it made no sense. But I always thought that like there was just something going on behind the scenes there.
Yeah, that's fair. Then the other club we mentioned on the side of that then is Newcastle, who are back in the Champions League for the first time since Bobby Robson was in charge, if I'm not mistaken, which I think is a good 20-year gap in between then. Just shows you how successful Mike Ashley was. But obviously not telling the whole story. It helps when you have a team that's like been defensively solid, tactically set up well. They're buying into what Eddie Howe is doing, and then of course very sneakily adding in the odd £60 million player every window. So they've kind of done that this year. Like the biggest draw proverbially has been Sandro Tonali and his continuous misery of being pulled away from his heartland of Milan in every video. Like the Newcastle PR team trying their best to make Tonali look like he's enjoying himself is absolutely fucking hilarious. And it actually just goes to show that sometimes players just really don't want to transfer. They just don't want to leave this club. It doesn't matter what money they're worth. They could be worth 100 million or 100 pence. They just want to stay at their preferred club. But this guy now has to replace Milan with fucking Tyneside. The rain, the cold, the bare nipples of Newcastle fans. He doesn't want that. There's nothing in that deal he wants. But nevertheless, like he's now part of this project, and he is now essentially the most crucial part of it, considering that the last person to play in his position was John Joe Shelby. So he's a vast improvement on him, to be fair. But he's being joined up by a lot of young English talent, Barnes, Livramento, potentially more on the way. Like Newcastle are quietly building their perfect team, and considering how like violent and aggressive the Saudi league has been in their recruitment, I feel like this is the softly approach from Newcastle's owners to say, oh no, we're staying behind the FFP. Look, see, we're only spending what we can, only 150 million every year. That's all right, we're not going crazy. Not going crazy, we're keeping sensible, But I suppose with Newcastle, the main challenge for them is going to be balancing the Champions League and seeing how they actually compete with the European elites. Because again, with the seeding, they're probably going to be pot 3 or 4, probably 4, going by the current pecking order. So, they're going to get a tough draw one way or another. But for them, what's the priority? Is it to keep this going or just to basically see what happens?
Yeah, I think it's to keep it going and fight on every front, go for it. They'll probably be in a low pot for the Champions League, but if they can make it out of the group, they'll probably consider it a huge success. They're still signing fantastic players. They're still signing good players. They've recently just sealed up a deal for Livramento. So that's going to be really good for them. So fucking no. With Newcastle, they've got a great midfield, solid defense, and in Isaac, they've got a striker that's really so much better than what normally rocks up at Newcastle prior to you don't have to go all the way back. I know Newcastle have had some great strikers way in the past, but recently they've not had that much. Except the perennially injured Callum Wilson. So yeah, I think they're just going to go out on all fronts and just go, yeah, look, let's be having yous. It's going to be a tough season for them, but they're realistic about it. Or at least a lot of the fans that I've spoken to, Newcastle fans that I've spoken to, they're quite realistic about what's going on. They're just going to enjoy the ride. They're in it. They never thought they'd be here, so they're just like, fuck it, yeah, we're in it. Let's just get drunk and have a good laugh until the police arrive.
That's a good way of looking at it, isn't it? I mean, I suppose the point is coming up in a conversation next are the teams that kind of missed out on the Champions League this year, and teams that kind of would be, shall we say, would have been setting their budgets expecting it, would be the likes of Liverpool, Chelsea, and Spurs. So Newcastle would be perhaps identified as the easiest to catch in that quartet. Are they doing enough to keep in fourth place, or are they under threat from the perennial top 6 coming back for one last hurrah?
I think both. I think they've done enough to go fourth, or to stay fourth, or maybe even, jostle for third, or maybe a bit higher. But also, Chelsea, I reckon, are going to be back in the mix again.
Yeah.
Villa have decided they aren't scrubs anymore. It's gonna. I think both are right. I think they've recruited smartly, they've recruited well, but so is everybody else.
Yeah, that's the difference. I think a lot of teams have got their shit together this year for the first time in a long time, which is what makes this league quite interesting, especially considering you mentioned Villa, you have Brighton as well, who let's say if they do sell their best players, for a fact they've got 3 ready to go, 3 replacements. If they do sell Caicedo to either Chelsea or Liverpool, they've got Mohamed Kudus already lined up. It's why not? Why is no one just going for him instead? Just cutting out the middleman, kind of way. It's baffling, but that's where Brighton is right now, and all power to it.
Yeah, everybody's slinging out the 4D chess memes about Brighton. They're just yeah, we're okay with this. I'm right, fine. They got caught in the hop a wee bit by Liverpool hitting the stupid low fucking McAllister release clause thing, and they're just right. I'm a firm believer in this myself, but a mistake you learn from isn't a mistake. It's a learning it's a lesson. And that's what they've learned from. They're right, no more crazy low fucking release clauses for our informed contracts. We're not agreeing on anything less than what we want for our players. So if you want Caicedo, you're going to have to stump up that cash.
It helps when you don't write the release clause into the contract, doesn't it?
Yes, yeah.
But in any case, so we mentioned the chasing pack, so let's get into it. So first of all, will be probably Liverpool in that conversation, considering they did finish 5th in the end. Like for what would be considered perhaps their worst season since the clock took over, they still end up finishing fifth, which I think is an accomplishment in its own right. Because going by the rest of the league, we did not deserve to finish fifth. But hilariously enough, it was because we adopted the new hot formation, the 3-4-3, which I know for a fact is burning like Jurgen Klopp's kidneys to even do so, because he hates the back three. He hates it with a passion. He thinks it's a waste of fucking players. You know, if he had it, if it was socially acceptable, he'd play one centre back and it'd be him. You know, kind of way. Like he would happily do that, but in the end, he had to kind of like obey what was the most sensible thing, and was to play the system so that Trent could come into midfield. Now, again, we were expecting a midfield rebuild because we knew there was 3 players out of contract, but in the end, that's not the whole story. So in the end, we sold 5 midfielders, and could have been 6, but Thiago has refused to leave, as in like he wants to stay at Liverpool. He doesn't want to go to Turkey or to Saudi Arabia. He rejected all the bids there. Firmino's gone as well, so fuck it, he counts as a midfielder as well half the time. So you're looking at six senior players gone in one fell swoop. 3 of them were free deals, but we did get some money back on mainly in the Fabinho deal. Whereas the Henderson deal wasn't more so a financial gain, was more emotional damage. Which I've spoken about at length off camera, but I haven't had a chance to say it in the podcast. But that one in particular,
a podcast.
I hate we Jordan really could. Podcast. We really fucking could, because like I find it very hard to put into words without getting very, very violent in my metaphors about how much I hate this Saudi professional league. I hate everything about it. I hate what they represent. I hate that they're a sports washing enterprise. I hate that if you have to go there, you pretty much just drop your principles regardless of what they are. Whether if you are an advocate for women's rights or advocate for LGBT rights, you're going there for the money. It's very evident. It's very obvious. And I will judge you for doing so. I'm not one of these people that believes that, they need to go there and make as much money as they can. No, fuck them. Honestly, fuck them, because you are already making enough money to last you a lifetime. Jordan Henderson was on 200 grand a week at Liverpool, and he haggled for that. He negotiated for that like 3 or 4 years ago to stay as club captain, and he was adamant in saying he didn't want to play as number 6. That's the reason why we got Fabinho in. It's a reason why we had got Thiago in, so he didn't have to play in that position. The club gave him everything. They gave him more money. They gave him money on par with Van Dijk and Salah at the time, and since then they've had their deals renegotiated. And he was a very crucial part of the team. He was a great club captain. I will give him credit for that. But when it comes to his public face, it fell over the summer, because he was one of the few voices in world football that was an advocate for LGBT rights. He was a Rainbow Laces wearer, and he was doing all these incentives. He still does a lot of charity work in the community, and again, a lot of it was LGBT oriented. Just because Steven fucking Gerrard takes a job in Saudi Arabia does not mean you have to follow him, right? Just because one Liverpool captain is so greedy and self-absorbed that he thinks he has to go to Saudi Arabia to keep his career, his very fledgling and pathetic career going, does not mean you have to do the same thing. That is quite simply not the case. You have your own mind, you have your own free will, and I don't know if you noticed, you're on 200 fucking grand a week. You don't need the fucking money at this time of your career.
I think it wasn't really Stevie G going over. I think it was more the 700k a week he was being offered.
Oh no! Did you not hear the interview he did? Oh no, it was all Steven Gerrard. It had absolutely nothing to do with the fucking money. He wanted to work with Steven Gerrard, who's apparently such a big draw. You want to go to the middle of fucking nowhere where you have no actual rights.
No, yeah, I'm certain that £750,000 a week had nothing to do with this decision. Fuck that shit. No, it's all about the Benjamins, man. It's all about the money. But yeah, I think it was a really Saudi disrupted sort of kind of summer for you, because I don't think, because you were already shipping out a lot of fucking mids, like Oxlade-Chamberlain was going out, Keita was gone, Milner was gone. So I think there was a kind of like Klopp did want to rebuild the midfield, but he wanted to kind of do it piecemeal, or do it gradually, do it like in small steps. But now when Saudi Arabia came in and offered up flipping great wadges of cash for both Henderson and Fabinho. And now he's like, oh, I have to retool my entire fucking midfield now. Thanks a lot, Saudi.
Yeah. And if they had their way, they would have signed Thiago and Matip, but those deals apparently aren't happening. I think Matip could still go, but I don't think Thiago is definitely staying put, as far as I know.
Thiago's already, he's outright just bluntly stated, look, he's not there. His agent and all has come out and gone, like, they can make offers. We can't stop them from doing that, but we're not taking them. So,
yeah,
which I suppose, yeah, that's grand from you.
Yeah. I for what it's worth as well, it's the, like, as I said, like, we were expecting a midfield rebuild, but I think the one other thing that happened that was disruptive was a change in sporting director. And this can be a double-edged sword at times because like, it was famously Michael Edwards was kind of the architect of that team, of the Liverpool team that, like, did win the Premier League and the Champions League and perhaps should have won more had Man City not like financially spoiled themselves. But then we replaced him with his number 2, which was Ward, and he stepped down within a year, to be replaced now with Jörg Schamek, who is known mostly for his work in the Bundesliga. Like, he is one of those Bundesliga kind of like team builders. So wherever he goes, he normally leaves a better team with them. And his most recent kind of work has been Wolfsburg, who are now back in the Champions League after a lot of years of obscurity. He's credited with bringing in the likes of Mickey van der Veen, who's just gone to Spurs, and a lot of that Werder Bremen team from the lower leagues and from the Dutch league and so forth. So he does his recruitment very, very well. He's also had the kind of the notable blunder every now and then. The most famous one being the Victor Osimhen, like selling him for a pittance to Lille with no sell-on clause. Like, he just didn't think he was good enough, and obviously has proved them wrong. So a lot of people kind of use that against him, but what's very telling is that the approach is now very, very different for Liverpool since he's been in charge. The McAllister deal was definitely one of the old regime because that was done way too early. That was done pretty much at the end of the season. And to be fair, that was going to happen anyway. I think McAllister is tactically the best fit for Liverpool they could get, especially, as you said, with the release clause. We're going to take that money because if there's a World Cup winner available for 35 million, you bet your ass we're going to get him. Yeah. Especially considering, like, he's often kind of regarded as the unsung hero of that team as well. Like, he's like essentially the reason why Argentina won the World Cup. Really, had nothing really to do with Messi or the other superstars. It's with the link-up play, you know. But then the approach changed with Dominic Bolajai, and this is the one I'm very excited by because
Tommy Slobbins.
Yes, Slobbins. Yes, you make him sound like a hobbit. Like, don't do that to him. Like, but like his was a very interesting thing because any person with a Liverpool football manager say will tell you that if you sign Bolajai with the current regime, you win everything. He is the cheat code for this Liverpool team because he is literally the perfect 8, perfect number 10 to complement everyone around him. So when we started seeing links to him, I was thinking, like, nah, you're fucking with me. Come on, you can't. This isn't happening. And then suddenly, within basically the space of a week, release clause triggered, contract signed, medical, boom, he's in the door. It's like, holy fuck. So it seems like Liverpool are now very opportunistic in the market, and this was probably illustrated with the Gakpo deal in January. Because pretty much United did all the legwork there, and Liverpool just came in with more money and like a van ready to take him to his medical pretty much instantaneously. It now seems to be happening with Caicedo, which I'm very surprised by as well, considering we were courting Lavia so much that, like, if anything, we were the Romeo as opposed to him. But it's interesting to see our different change of approach, and it'll be I'm curious to see how we'll do this season because, as I said, a lot of our rivals have strengthened. A lot of our rivals have got their shit together, and we're nearly there in terms of getting our shit together, but we're still missing a few things. And now that the midfield is starting to make sense, everyone's going to start looking now to our defenders and thinking, okay, are you back to normal or are you all still crocked? You know, because that was an issue that people kind of forgot about last year as well. There's a lot made about the midfield being out of practice, but the defenders didn't really cover themselves in glory either, you know.
Yeah, I suppose you could do with another holding mid. But yeah, it's seeing about how this midfield really clicks now. And Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I am so fucking looking forward to watching Spotsylvania. I think he's going to be awesome for you. I really, really do think he's going to
Yeah.
be brilliant.
He is genuinely a perfect sign for us for what we want to do, and that's in that midfield. Honest to God, he is so good.
But I don't know. I look at it like it's a thin squad. Like you're wide open to injuries. Like one or two injuries, especially when we're coming into a season where players are going to be playing more games than ever.
Mm.
Yeah, I think injuries are. I think you might come undone with injuries this season.
That was the fear last time, and again, I think with the fact that we've come out of preseason now pretty much unscathed with no senior players injured, that's the best case scenario that we have, because again we ended up leaving. Well, we did a tour of the Far East, and that was kind of the killer for the team, really, because it was just the last straw for a lot of players' bodies in a sense. We lost like I think 3 players in 1 week in preseason, which is hellacious in that, and we were pretty much at odds and ends for the entire year then after that. So I think we're a bit smarter with our preseason this time around, because they stayed in Germany. They just did a lot of camps in I think it was they did this last time, we did in Evian instead of doing it in the Far East, or
Yeah.
In Asia rather. So they do kind of like a proper warm up training camp, then do their corporate obligations, then come back and finish their camp, which was a good approach this time, and it worked. Um, I haven't I don't I'm not falling for the preseason football this time around, because last season made us look like fucking demigods. And then we walk up to the first game against Fulham, and Van Dijk is losing an arm wrestling match with Alexander Mitrovic. So it wasn't it was a bit distortionary, but there are some good takeaways. I think the Europa League, in a way, and this is going to sound very counterintuitive, is going to be a great chance for us to get the squad up to speed. I don't think Darwin's going to be starting every game, but he is absolutely the fucking break glass situation, because he is on tremendous form, scoring a lot of goals. A lot has been made of him finally learning the language over the summer, so he actually does have a good grasp of English now, which is very important. I think him, outside of like compared to a lot of other players, needed a grasp of the language before he could actually play with players. Diaz was just so good off the, like, just generally as an individual, he didn't need a level of communication, but Darwin does. So I think like it's a very small thing, but any coach will tell you, once he can speak the language, that just helps him immensely, just in training even. And I think a few other takeaways as well is that Curtis Jones seems to be being changed into a number 6, which is an interesting approach, because that's how he played for England in the Euros, in the Euro under-21s, in a role where him and Harvey Elliott won the under-21s for England. So that's an interesting approach. I don't know if it'll work, considering that, again, if we're sticking to this box, he is basically the left 8 in that equation. Trent, same question for him. Is he better off now in midfield or not? It looks like he's staying at right back for now, but whenever shit hits the fan,
it wasn't his movement in the midfield was what sparked your resurgent form last season, wasn't it?
It absolutely was. It absolutely undoubtedly was. I think the difference is that if I would be more assured of us putting him in midfield if we had signed an actual right back, but we haven't. I would say like tactically the best person to sign there would be Pavard, but it looks like he's United bound, which is a shame. But again, we could steal a march, do what we did last time, and snag him. I think if we do, then Trent is a midfielder for the rest of his time in Liverpool, because like realistically speaking, his distribution from that position is fabulous, and we're losing a trick from doing so. He's just lost that yard of pace he did have when he was younger, is gone now. The recovery run is not good enough to keep him at right back now. So we need to be a bit smarter with how we use him. Again, if we do the same thing, if we get like a left sided centre back, we could do the same thing. But it's the same issue we're having now, where we're leaving it all to Kanate, and if he goes down with an injury, the whole team kind of fucks on both formations. So we need to get a defender in. And another takeaway is probably Ben Doak. He is the latest from the Liverpool production line, who, with the Europa League, he is going to get a lot of minutes, and he is going to show how good he is. A very natural dribbler, like literally, he is like 50 fucking dribbles at the gallon. So he is going to be the debut.
Didn't you get him off Celtic?
Celtic when he was 16. Yeah, we paid out a couple of million for him. And he's basically had like a year or two in our academy, and he is just a fucking star turn. He's brilliant. Couple that then with Bacelic returning, and when you start weighing in how many young players we do have, the midfield looks a lot healthier. And if you're throwing Elliott into the midfield, not his natural position, I think he's better off as a right winger. But you have Jones in there, you have Bacelic in there, potentially a career for the likes of Clark and Morton. There are opportunities in this midfield, and Klopp does want to use the Europa League to try these players out, even to just to bump up their fucking market value, if anything. And that can be said for Jarell Kwanzaa, who seems to be getting the fifth centre-back responsibility for Liverpool as well. And he's very young, he's very green, but he does have the physical attributes to make it work. So in a way, I have a quiet excitement about the season, because I'm coming in with no expectations to win anything. I just want to see how this team is getting on, how this team is progressing. Like, we are spoiled for choice for attackers. The midfield is going to look very, very tasty. It's just down to the defenders at this stage. I feel like it's going to be a return to heavy metal football, and I'm kind of looking forward to that.
Yeah. I don't think it's down to your defenders. I think it's down to how that new midfield knits together, because it's an entirely new midfield. Like, it's not just, you've changed one or two players. You've changed all of them. Like, they're all just fucking changed. So I think it's down to how well that midfield knits. I think your defense is good enough. And I think you've got a plethora of attacking talent, as Liverpool and Klopp always have. I think it's all down. Like, if that midfield knits, I think you're gravy. If it doesn't, I think you're screwed. I think you're going back to last season.
Yeah.
Also, another good thing about that Europa League you were mentioning there, you're almost certainly favourite to win it, and the final's in Dublin.
That is so tempting. Like, that's the biggest part of it for me, is that Liverpool with the Irish connection, that is almost too good an opportunity to not take up.
And
if you have a final Dublin, you fucking take it. Like, absolutely.
And the best thing about it, like, it's not a final out in fucking way out in Istanbul or some place like that. You have to fly like 9 hours to, like, you can be in Dublin.
To be fair, we're okay with finals in Istanbul, to be honest.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. But that's also a good one. But, like, fuck it, if Istanbul was only an hour away, you'd be like, yeah, I'm really on for this.
Yeah. No, I think the Europa League is going to be a good playing ground for us, because, like I said, we're coming in. It will be pot one regardless. This will be it's a chance as well for some of the players to come down a step a little bit, because I think Matip and Gomez, Europa League is now kind of their level. They have declined a good bit. Gomez in particular, in my view, because for a player's age, he should not be playing as poorly. But he hasn't staked a claim for the starting 11. I don't think he will. He might. That being said, because he's so versatile, he might end up being the kind of the Ben White in our 3-box-3. Like, he might have to be played because he is that positionally fullback and centre back. You know what I mean? But that's up to him. He needs to play. He needs to take the claim. He needs to use the opportunity when he has it. But yeah, I think and of course this is where Conor Bradley can come in as well. He had a super season at Bolton. He is a Trent style right back. He could be the answer to our prayers as well. We don't know. This is a season of kind of big question marks, and that's what kind of makes it interesting to me. Chelsea's the kind of same one as well, and it's appropriate that we're facing them first next season. They have sold a lot of players. Yes, indeed. They've sold a lot of players. They bought a lot of players. It's Todd Bowley, that's least we forget. But Pochettino's now at the helm, and what seems to be from all the players that they have sold out, it seems like they've kind of crystallized, or in the process of crystallizing, what the Chelsea team is going to be like. They are cautiously optimistic on Jackson coming good as their new number 9, which is good. But of course now they've lost out with Nkuku tearing his MCL, which is a horrible way to start your season, considering like he would be their number 10, essentially replacing both Havertz and Mount. So that's not a good way to start your season. Again, this is going to be an odd one to watch as well, because with Chelsea, this could work brilliantly with like a new generation of Chelsea players, a lot of homegrown talent they could use, or it could all backfire. Like, it's so hard to tell with Chelsea these days.
Yeah, like a fresh start is absolutely what that team needed. Last season was nothing. Last season was a complete disaster. They were flirting with relegation at one stage. So like they've gotten in Pochettino. He's going to get them playing with more intensity, which is absolutely what they have to do. They've no European football whatsoever. So yeah, that's a lot of training ground work. That's a lot of time to spend. Will it work? Shrug emoji.
Mm.
There's, as I said before, like there's a fresh start. It absolutely had to happen. The bloated squad needed to be trimmed. Arguably, it needs to be trimmed an awful lot more. They needed to get in the players that they got in. They needed to get in Jackson. They needed to get in Nkunku, even though he did go and rip an MCL, but they definitely needed him. So, but there's also the flip side of the coin is whether or not you can lose that amount of top internationals to your rivals.
Yeah.
Like they weren't like fucking selling them out into the ether. They were selling them to direct rivals.
They gave one to Arsenal, one to United, one to City. And we're going like, where's ours? Like,
no, fuck you.
Leroy Colwill, are you doing anything lately?
Yeah, so it's a coin toss. Although to be honest with you, I think they're going to be decent. I think they're going to be better. I think where do I have them? Hang on, I think I have them finishing. I have them finishing fifth.
Yeah, I think they again. It's one of those ones where it'll be a slow starter, but once they kind of get that team built in, like Pochettino has a lot of goodwill in my view. I think he is a tremendous manager. This will be the type of team he would like to manage. Like it's young, it's energetic, it's aggressive in what they want to do. And I think Chelsea's problem last year was that they just weren't tested. Like between Lampard going on the record and saying that this Chelsea team weren't working hard enough. And same with like the whatever preseason they had with Tuchel was just not enough. So this is now a team that's young enough to be worked in a high fucking pressure system, high press system that Pochettino will use. I think it'll come good, And again, this is one of the times where they're probably grateful for not having the European commitments. This is a team. This is a season where they can basically have a free hit, get themselves bedded in, and challenge properly, like how Arsenal did last season.
Yeah, pretty much. I think a lot. I think one of the main things that Pochettino is going to just love playing with is the fact that Chelsea have probably the two best fullbacks in the league, and they've re-signed or they signed to an extension another exceptional one in Colwill. So yeah, like I reckon that's going to be a lot if they can just keep Reece James and Ben Chilwell healthy. I think they'll come good. I think that's going to be a real mainstay of what you're going to see from this Chelsea team is just absolute marauding wing back or full back play.
Yeah.
Because like it's been pointed out that much like Alexander-Arnold, like they're so much more than defenders.
Yeah.
They're the biggest attacking threats at times for long periods of time. So yeah, that's them. I think that'll be key. If they can keep them healthy, I reckon they're in a good shot.
Yeah, that's very very fair point, and I think that's the kind of the big question mark over it, whether they can actually sustain that form or not. I suppose the same question kind of goes with Spurs, and they're in a similar situation where they've had to basically gentrify their own team for all intents and purposes. But they've done it by bringing Ange Postecoglou in. Now, again, with Spurs, they don't make things easy for themselves. They wanted to, like certain managers like Tuchel and so forth. They weren't available, and kept it rolling until they had Ryan Mason in charge for what feels like the fourth time. And he's like the placeholder Spurs manager at this stage. Like whenever the annual calamity happens, he just kind of like just takes charge. Like he's never actually left, kind of way. Like he still has his login for the fucking manager laptop, But Postecoglou's in, obviously taking over from Conte, leaving his happy little home in Chelsea or Celtic rather. And like Postecoglou's coming in with a really nice reputation. Like he is a very attacking coach. He seems very down to earth, very matter of fact. And what any Celtic fan will probably tell you, and any Scottish football fan, and Dave was here he'd probably tell us more. He is a very, very good recruiter. Scouts like lesser leagues, finds players that are going to be good, that suits what he wants to do. But in the end, with Spurs, they kind of want to get more not marquee signings, but players that you know of that can progress and become sellable assets. Now that being said, this is all hunky dory, but this all depends on what happens with Harry Kane. So at time of recording, there is an offer on the table from Bayern Munich to the tune of 100 million euros. The question is, Neil, if you're Harry Kane, take it or leave it.
I fucking take it.
Yeah,
I absolutely take that. I take that every day of the week and twice on Sundays. Look, I think Kane was holding out for the Spurs team to go somewhere, and I don't think it's going there quick. It's like the amount of overhauls and squad rebuilds and new managers that they've gone through, and if anything, it's just gotten worse since the time he was since he's been holding over from his last contract extension, and he's just fucking fed up with it. Like, and he's just like, no, I'm just done. He's gonna go. Like, Postecoglou, like, yeah, he comes in with a really good reputation, and yeah, I reckon he'll probably I think he'll do a very good job. It'll be interesting to see how my interest in Spurs, for what it is as an Arsenal fan, my interest will be how they fare with a manager. Finally, now that they finally have a manager who doesn't feel like he's doing the club a favor by simply being there.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, like they've got a decent-ish team, but they've recruited quite well. That Van de Ven.
Van de Ven is a great signing. Like, I'm raging that we didn't back him up ourselves.
Yeah, Madison is in as well. So, it'll be interesting to see. Like, you know, I'm like, can he get Son Heung-min back to like the Maraudon days, whereas like last season he was a fucking ghost. I don't think he's done a tremendous amount. I'm like, Van de Ven aside, like, he's not done a tremendous amount of that defense. That defense is garbage.
Yeah, you know? I think there's still work to be done there for sure. Like, I think that they're putting a lot of faith in Ashley Phillips as well, coming in from Blackburn, who is kind of considered to be the next like big English centre back coming up. So I think there could be a lot on his shoulders as well. The one thing I think what Ange always seems to do as well, he does give out like pathways to young players. And Spurs, to their credit, do tend to have a decent production line. But a lot of it is going to come down to like to what are they doing with it with players that Conte disregarded. Is the likes of Spence, Sessegnon, Gill, are they going to have a future? That's kind of a really kind of burning question for him. In a way, like, he's got so much choice in certain places, but then he also has none, if you know what I mean, where like he's had to kind of like come out and buy a new goalkeeper because Lloris is declining rapidly. So he's done that. He seems to have a decent selection of wingers. Granted, they're kind of a weird mix of like well-touted players and then kind of obscure players. So you've got your Sons and Kukulevski's back in the fold, but then you have like a Manor Solomon and a Brian Kill, and you're thinking like, okay, how do you make all these players work? You know, he seems to want to give every player a chance, which I appreciate. In a very weird way, the only person that doesn't seem on board with the whole project is Harry Kane himself. It's like I feel he feels like he's just a bit jaded. You know, he's kind of sick of this whole rinse and repeat, let's go again routine with Spurs, where they just throw out a manager, try again, completely different approach, one middling season, and then it all falls apart again. Like, I don't blame, like, there's the talk is that he wants to stay, but I can't see why he would, outside of basically breaking records held by Shearer and Jimmy Greaves. I'm thinking, surely there's more to, like, if you're basing your career off records rather than trophies, then that's a bit of an skewed priority list, isn't it?
Yeah, I reckon so, because I wouldn't even mind, but he's made it very clear that he wants to be like, he wants to have a trophy cabinet. You know, like if he was like sort of like Letizier as a player, where he's like, I don't give a fuck where I go, I don't give a shit. Like, I'm gonna stay here time and time again. I love this club. I'm here for life. I don't give a shit whether we win nothing or not. Well, bollocks, you know. That was it. Like, if he'd said that, well, not those exact words, but if he'd said that or something to that effect, then yeah, fine. Nobody would be sweating him on this. But he's made it perfectly clear he wants to win shit. He doesn't want to potter around being the nearly also Rans
pretty
He's fed up
much.
with this shit. Exactly. He just doesn't. He's fed up with the shit now. He wants to win shit, and now he's being offered a deal by Bayern, and people are like, "Well, nobody else is really offering you a deal." I'm like, maybe if you turn down Bayern, maybe Man U will come back in, but there's no real guarantee he'll win with them, and Levi will never take a deal with them because he's asking for so much cash. So chances are you'll be sat around here for another year until you leave for a free, which, by the way, would be the absolute worst thing for Spurs. I really, really do hope that they realize they cannot let him go for nothing.
Yeah, that's the big fear for them, is that like it is 100 million now in the bank. Like they've accepted the fee, the offer. Like they've accepted the offer from Bayern. It is now down to the player. It's down to Kane himself. I'm thinking, like, again, if you're Kane, it's an easy Bundesliga title for sure, but it's also a decent shout at the Champions League as well. You know, like it, yeah, especially with Tuchel in charge now, and kind of Nagelsmann kind of been found out a little bit, when he's in charge of the club. This is a chance now to actually stake your claim and actually win some actual gold. You know, because between Spurs and between England, you ain't winning fucking shit at the minute, so you might as well try something. You know.
No, he's not winning. He's not winning dick at Spurs.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just it. You know.
Yeah. Very good. So that's how we think the top of the table is going to look at. We mentioned a couple of kind of outsiders there. Like there is, as we saw last season, a few kind of interlopers, shall we say, with the top half, and they're going to stake a claim again. So like out of the midfield is kind of like, the midfield pack is kind of gone now in the Premier League. There does seem to be like teams who know what they're doing and teams who absolutely fucking don't. And whoever is in that top half is absolutely, definitely going to be challenging for the top 8 at least. Because again, it looks like at the balance of play, it's 8 places now for Europe for England. So out of that, who do you think is the most likely to challenge that proverbial top 5?
Brighton.
You think it's probably still going to be Brighton after all the business they've done the last while?
Oh, absolutely. I'd say they're ridiculously excited about being in Europe. I didn't watch a lot of the pre-season tour, but the sounds out of it was almost unanimously positive.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like that's like they're doing really fucking well. Like De Zerbi is just an immense coach. He's brilliant. Like he's absolutely fantastic. Like he's brilliant. He's gifted. He's passionate, and he's got a bit of needle in it because he's already winding up Chelsea about how Brighton are in Europe and they're not.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, you know, that's the thing. What I want to see from Brighton, I want to see more about the most talented Irishman in the league, and Big Evan Ferguson. Give me more of that. The only kind of like, I don't really see a weak link in that team as well. Like they're fucking brilliant. They're absolutely fucking brilliant. The only thing is if they lose Caicedo, right? He'll be key if he stays. If he doesn't, as we said before, they'll just get somebody else in. I'm like, he won't be as good as Caicedo, probably. Well, not right now, but you know, he'll be coached really well. But like, it's not as if they're not sweating anything. Like they're just looking forward to playing in Europe, you know.
Yeah,
and I think they'll be really good in fucking Europe. I think they'll be really, really good. I think they're going to do so well in that. De Zerbi is chopping at the fucking bit to get rip into a load of fucking Italian and Spanish teams. I guarantee you, like he's just looking for
it. Yeah, no, I think that's fair. Like, I mean, like I said, I think like with Brighton, no matter who they sell, they always seem to have a plan B for already, because even before selling Sanchez, they already got a goalkeeper in from Club Brugge. And even after selling McAllister, like they've got Enciso there, they've got Sarmiento. They seem to already have players. Like I forgot about Mohamed Dahoud coming in from Borussia Dortmund, who was like previously touted as one of the best, like the up and coming German midfielders in a while. Now injuries curtailed that a little bit, but he is still a serious get for what is still a mid-table like Premier League team. So then if you have the likes of Mohamed Kudus coming in, potentially Mohamed Darami is what I was hearing as well. Like there are some serious movements happening at Brighton, and it's true merit. It's true the fact that they have got their shit together. They've got a club that makes sense. One of the best coaches in the league at the moment. It's all upward trajectory for Brighton at this minute. And I am kind of excited to see how they get on. In the same way that you mentioned Brighton, I'm kind of on the Villa buzz at the moment. Because
You are erect. Hello,
I
good
am
evening.
correct. Very good. Good evening. Yes, very good. Very good. Yes. And it's maybe for the same reasons. I think they're gonna relish being in Europe. Like potentially going up against Hibs for the spot in the Conference League, which is exciting. I think if they played out right, I think they do have a genuinely good chance of winning it. I think a lot of it's dependent on actually, again, the injuries really fucked them up last season, but they got injuries at really unfortunate times, and now suddenly Emi Buendia is down for the season with an ACL injury. So now they're back in the market for potentially Nicolo Zalolo, which is a fucking huge get for Villa if they can get him. And this is after signing like Moussa Diaby, who was probably the best right winger in the Bundesliga last season. Pau Torres, who is absolutely Tielemans as well, for nothing, which is tremendous business in its own way. They have got good players in.
That is chef kiss. That is chef's kiss. Like wow.
Yeah. So, like I said, they have bolstered every part of the squad already. And with Ollie Watkins, like mercurial now up front, they can arguably get away with the striking options they have now because they got serious youth coming up as well.
Oh yeah. So what's his name? He's got a mad fucking sort of Philogene.
Philogene, yeah.
Philogene Bidace or something like that. Like it's a mad hyphenated name that sounds like a fucking chemical compound you'd lob into a trench in the First World War. So yeah. Like again, much like you said there, I don't really see a whole lot of weak links in that team. Like again, much like last season, I think injuries are kind of susceptible to. Watkins goes down, it's going to be hard. But again, they've got youth coming through. Will that youth will said skills pay the bills? It's difficult to see. I'd say the biggest one is maybe injuries to Martinez. Olsen's not a good backup. Well, I don't rate Olsen. I've never rated Olsen as a keeper.
No.
So yeah, if the bastard goes down, and he is a shithouse bastard. Right?
He is a shithouse. He's a bit of a shit now.
He's a completely shithouse bastard.
Yeah.
So if he goes down, if he goes down, I reckon like maybe like Rex attendant from shagging a statue or something like that. If he goes down, I reckon they're kind of boned keeper wise because the backups just are not convincing whatsoever.
Yeah.
And maybe at right back as well. They might need cover at right back. But hey, no, like I'm usually in agreement with you. I reckon they're covered.
I think so. I think just even looking at their squad, their first 11 is a tremendous 11. And now that they're getting the players in, the squad depth is slowly growing. Like they do have they've spent an awful lot of money the last couple of years. But out of all the teams in Europe this year, I think Aston Villa need to justify the spending with challenging the Conference League title. It's kind of the opposite to how West Ham did, because West Ham, like by all accounts, had kind of like a God-given right to try and win something with the team that they had, and they kind of looked out in the end with the kind of the field kind of like parting for them. Like Fiorentina was the best challenge they had in the end, and for a certain respect, I think Aston Villa will just see that as an opportunity because, like, I don't know if you noticed, but Juventus isn't there anymore. So, like, they are potentially the new favorites. There will be other favorites, of course. I know I'm being slightly biased towards the Premier League here, but there is at least an option for them to go and win it. Again, you have a coach who is clearly a specialist in Europe as well. And this potentially could be a quicker pathway up to the Europa League than it would be league position. But as we said, they could be the great disruptors, having to disrupting people's chances for qualifying as well. So there are things to watch out for in Aston Villa, because they're not done yet business wise either. That is for fucking sure. So before we do our league table roundup, we grundle all the way down to the bottom of the league. And before we give away who we think are going down, we talk about the promoted teams first. So we have Burnley, headed by Vincent Kompany and his giant head. And that said, giant head seems to have a tremendous amount of knowledge in it, Neil, because a lot of people are quite happy with Burnley this year. I'm quite excited to see them, actually, because if you were to tell me this is a Burnley side, gentrified, full of youth and energy and spark, you would have thought they had Burns, Sean Dyche in a Wicker Man, to do that. But no, they
It
have
still might.
actually. It's possible. It is possible. You know, you
I
can never
think
rule it
we'll call that Plan B.
yeah, exactly. But it does seem to be working for them at the minute. They streamrolled the championship at a canter, really, with a team that were, let's face it, fetuses compared to the team that left the Premier League. And they just bought in more youth. They bought in more high promise players. Like for to be very, very biased, we have three really good Irish players in that squad in Darragh O'Shea, Josh Cullen, and Michael Obafemi. So we will be very biased to see how they get on this year. But they've also bought like they've bolstered pretty much every position on the team, and a couple of like handy experienced players too. This is a good Burnley side. Like they play good football, and realistically speaking, I think they're going to be well safe, to be honest with you. Out of all the promoted teams.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've seen predictions to have them. Well, I've seen people predict them finishing as high as fucking 12th.
It's on. I think it's possible.
It's possible. I don't think so. I have them 14th. But like, my God, like they've really moved. It's rare to see a promoted team move this well on the market. As we stated before, like they've bought Michael Obafemi. That was great. I know they were on loan. The other guy, Jordan Bayer, Bayer. He's great as well. They made his loan permanent. They got the Man City keeper in, Trafford. It's gonna be like they're really, really good. Yeah, like Company, fuck me. Like he really seems to know what he's doing. And
it helps, doesn't it? Like it really does help.
Yeah, like it's brilliant. Like it's gonna be a more difficult, more complex campaign for them. Obviously, it's the Premier League. Like fuck me, like it's gonna be a total pressure cooker. They're gonna take it really well. I think they're gonna go for it. They're gonna enjoy themselves, but they're not gonna get carried away. Yeah, like I reckon. No, I reckon they'll be safe. They're well safe. As I said before, I have them at 14th. And I reckon they'll be good. They'll be surprisingly good.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Like, I think people might have the expectation of Burnley to be really like static and kind of tough to beat, but I think they'll be the opposite. They're going to be They're going to be a youthful, energetic side, and like their home form, like most promoted teams, are going to be crucial. But they are kind of coming from the opposite direction, where like you don't want to go to Turf Moor because you're going to get worked, as opposed to don't go to Turf Moor, you get your shit kicked out of you. You know, kind of way. It's a very different like balance now. You know. Now that being said, I don't think we can say the same for the other two teams in the coming up, which is Sheffield and Luton. Two very different stories. Two very different stories coming up there. But I think it's evident that like the gap between the Championship and the Premier League are, like we say it every year, the gap seems to be growing. But that being said, Sheffield could do a lot better than selling their best players to Championship rivals. And especially like I think someone described the sale of like Ilman Ndiaye, like literally selling the best striker the club has ever had in their history, potentially, and only after one season as well, and for pittance a week after he signed a new contract. Like that's grim in its own right. That's really, really grim. But the reality is that again we kind of like breezed over it because it was happening last season. But Sheffield United had a transfer ban. They were under an embargo for a couple of months. They were in violation of FFP. Were close to getting fined for it, but in the end they kind of got away with it. So they have been in selling modes, and they still are. Like broadly, like realistically speaking, this season is going to be to bag the Premier League money, sell as many players as they can, bag the parachute payments next season, and then basically take the team out of recovery. So like that goes without saying, there's little to no expectations for the Sheffield team. So I guess the sky's the limit when your like expected position is 21st, you know. So But then we have Luton Town, which again I think every like TV production are relishing because they just love the awkwardness, and it's also that now it's a chance for all the TV cameras to go, oh, let's look at how the poor people live. Oh, look, you have to go through a man's bedroom to get to the away stands. How many other football accounts have said that the last 4 fucking months, you unoriginal bastards? But they're ones where like this is like such a wonderful story in a sense. We've been down this road before with Bournemouth a couple of years ago with how nice a meteoric rise they've had. And for Luton, like it's nice to see a team so small compared to the rest of the league be able to actually make it to the Premier League. It kind of shows that it's still possible, despite all the big money and foreign investment you get in English football these days. Like they're absolutely not ready for it. It goes without saying, but this is going to be a fun experience for them, just having to basically force Pep Guardiola to have like a cup of tea in someone else's kitchen, let alone in a fucking actual dressing room. Like he's like Pep Guardiola is going to be traumatized when he sees Kenilworth Road. Like,
yeah,
like he's
I
gonna.
think he is. I think it's weird. You're gonna have managers who are gonna freak out like him, and then
Yeah.
you're gonna have managers like maybe like Arteta and Klopp. Klopp will just fucking love that. Klopp will actually love that.
Yeah,
he
he
just
will.
imagine him sitting in someone's kitchen, laughing his arse off, drinking it. He's like,
If he gets into the stands, he will absolutely watch the match in someone else's house.
Totally, yeah, absolutely. And he'll love it. You'll probably call the ref a fucking goat fucking cunt in the tunnel just so he can watch it and somebody else smack the ref in the back of the head. Yeah, crack, get the fuck. Yeah. So
whereas I feel like Pep would have to give himself like a cold shower, still clothed, just to get the stench of Luton
it'd be
off.
like the scene in fucking Ace Ventura when he realizes that the lieutenant's a man, burning his clothes in the bin.
It still smells like pies. How?
There were no pies even there. Why the pies?
Why is everyone wearing hats? I don't understand.
Yeah, it's weird. The thing is, I think they're both going down, but I think if I had to pick one of them that's probably going to stay up, I would pick Luton, because Luton have taken the usual method of actually securing the core of their team and not selling off all their best players the instant they get into the most competitive division in world football. Whereas,
what strange strategy for them to have? Like, what weirdos? What strange people?
Yeah, Sheffield United missed that memo. I think Sheffield, it's going to be a disaster for them. I really, really fucking like it's going to be bleak. Like it was.
I think we are looking at a derby here, a Derby County level of league for league result for them. I do fear for them in that regard, but yeah. So I suppose this is the best time to actually to get on with our league predictions. So with that, then we well, you're not going to see this, folks, at home, but we are going to see this ourselves, because boy, do we love a spreadsheet on this podcast, ladies and gentlemen. So what I've done here is as our kind of a barometer for what we've seen here is we've thrown in what we think are what the journalists by way of the Guardian have said that their ideal league table is going to be. So in no particular order. Oh wait, we have an intruder in the call.
Hello.
our substitution in the 95th minute has come in to just join us in on the spreadsheet shenanigans.
I'm here for the penalties and penalties only.
Oh, that always goes well.
Well, actually, with the new rules on added time now, extra time could go on for another 45 minutes.
Oh, geez, these podcasts will be like fucking 3 hours long in that case.
Yeah.
So, and anyway, so Burke, well, welcome to the show. You join us just in time
Hello.
for the most important bit, the Premier League predictions.
I've just been doing a really intense warm up. That's why I'm late coming on.
Man, yeah, I mean, look, yeah, like preseason is tough for all of us here, especially for podcasters. Like we've been podcasting nonstop for the last 3 weeks, all off camera, ready for this big moment. So, So anyway, so what I've done is I've compiled what the journalists, by way of the Guardian's predictions, have said what the league table is going to look like. So going from bottom to top, they reckon that Luton, Sheffield, and Wolves are going down. Now, granted, the Wolves and West Ham have not made their position clear yet, but let's face it, Wolves are going down. So I've taken a bit of creative license there. The bottom half of the table from 17th up is looking like Everton, Burnley, Bournemouth, West Ham, Fulham, Crystal Palace, and Nottingham Forest. The top 10 going up then is Brentford, Brighton. In the provisional ECL spot is Spurs. The Europa League teams are Aston Villa and Newcastle. Your Champions League teams, citation needed, Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester United, Arsenal, and Manchester City as champions. That's what we think, or that's what they think is going to be the league table. But
here, do you want to put in a second column there, and I'll put in the Athletic journals because I've got the Athletic up here. Do you want to stick them in?
Well, I don't see what harm that would do. I mean, we're not sponsored incidentally, so we can mock them for their choices.
Yeah.
So, go from bottom to top.
Athletic, get us some free stuff. Right, so I'm just gonna rattle them off so it's not wasting time there. So they've got City winning it, pricks. Yep. Arsenal second, Man U third, Liverpool fourth, Chelsea fifth, Newcastle sixth, Spurs seventh, Villa 8th, Brighton 9th, Brentford 10th, West Ham 11th, Palace 12th, Fulham, Burnley, Fulham 13th, Burnley 14th, Bournemouth 15th, Everton 16th, Notts Forest 17th.
Ooh.
And then the relegated teams they have in this order: Wolves, Luton, and Sheffield.
Very well. So it's very close to what the journals on them journals has said. So that's it's good. It's good to know they're like. In fairness, it is quite a logical league table from both of them. Like it's kind of anticipating that you're not going to see much of by way of different league tables. Like this is accounting for potential shocks as well, because I don't think anyone really had Arsenal finishing second last season. So who knows what could happen this year. So, Burtbot, seeing that you've joined us in for this one, you're going to take the first shout here for the league.
Yeah, so I am differing from the people who know what they're talking about, I suppose, journalists. And my list is as follows. Controversial. I think I'm going to be in trouble here. Okay. I think City are going to win it.
Okay. I don't think that's controversial.
Is there no hope?
No, because in second place I have Newcastle.
Oh, okay. So you think the Saudi money is gonna appraise over time then for Newcastle?
Yep. I have Arsenal in third.
Okay.
Liverpool fourth.
Okay.
Fifth is Brighton.
Brighton fifth. Okay.
Villa sixth.
Okay.
Man United, or Scum as I have them in my notes.
For seventh, okay.
Dollar sign EA in eighth.
Todd Volleyball, gotcha.
Spuds ninth.
Spurs ninth, okay.
This is where this has been tough to call because I actually think Matt Turner being signed for Forest could do a job for them. I have them 10th.
Interesting. Forest are an interesting one. We didn't speak of them in the podcast, but now that they don't have as below to the side, they could just be better off for it.
When you have kind of okay, this is literally all I have to work with. We are going to have to play this particular style. Boom. That's my opinions on it.
Fair point.
West Ham.
Okay.
Palace.
Yeah.
I just think they're just going to be I feel like there's from West Ham onwards or downwards. I think there's just going to be a gulf. I don't think it's top 10. I think it might be top 10, top 11. I'm
agreeing with you on that one. To be fair, I think there's going to be.
I think it's going to be a race to the bottom from 12th onwards.
Okay.
So Palace, Brentford in 13th.
Ooh, okay.
Fulham.
Mm-hmm.
Burnley,
Okay.
Wolves, and purely because I forgot about them doing this table,
That tends to happen, yeah.
and I just stuck them somewhere around the bottom.
Okay.
I don't
Interesting.
think they're going to be exciting enough to be in a relegation battle, um, because I feel like Bournemouth haven't really done much. Sorry, no, Wolves, Sheffield, 17th, and then the three that are getting relegated. But I think Bournemouth is going to be 20th. I know I'm skipping the order, but it's because I just think they're going to crash out and burn.
Right, okay.
And then it's going to be like very tight between 16th, 17th, 18th, and 19th. And that's where I have Luton 18th and Everton 19th.
Wow. Okay. So we're actually committing to an Everton relegation this year.
In all fairness, they do need to be put out of their misery. I don't really think that's going to be this season, unfortunately. But
I just think Seamus Coleman's injury, like whatever about his on-field kind of ability last season, they missed his leadership on the pitch when he was out injured, and I don't think him coming back. I don't. When is he due to come back? I don't know if he has a due date to come back. If he's going to come back, if he's on the sideline and he's being a voice on the sideline, I don't think it's enough. They needed Shamie Coleman heroics last season. I don't think they're going to get them this season, and that is why I see them going down.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. Yeah, I can. Again, we didn't discuss Everton really because again, it's so hard to tell with Everton what they're going to get. Like it is now very evident that they are now relegation fodder. Like they are now, but then again, I think they're better equipped weirdly now with the likes of Dyson in charge and the kind of the dogged players they have in especially midfield and defense. But the real problem is that they have perhaps one of the worst strike forces in the league compared to everyone else. Like Calvert-Lewin is barely fit, and then whenever he is, he's normally outdone by Neil Maupay, who's an objectively bad striker as well. So between him and Calvert-Lewin barely able to play, like the onus kind of falls on Dwight McNeil to score most of his goals. And again, that's not a great incentive either. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I'll throw my hat into the ring next then. So I'm being a bit sensible with my table predictions here. So I do believe Man City are going to win, and unfortunately, I do think it's going to be at a canter. Mainly because I think a lot of other teams are going to be trying to balance out Europe and seeing whatever it is. I think the signings that Man City have made are boring signings. Like the Kovacic's, your Paquetas, all these ones are designed to choke out league games. So I think they're just going to snuff the league out immediately, and it's just going to be fucking tedious to watch. Like they are just the most fucking boring champions in a long, long time, and that's even including like United back in the day. At least they had like a row in between the teams every now and then just to spice things up.
There's a bit of feistiness.
Yeah, like Roy Keane will like give out fuck or David Beckham have a boot thrown at him. Like that was fun. That was banter. Like these guys are just boring now. I do think Arsenal are a comfortable second though. Just the signings this year, I think they're going to be settled and sorted for that. I don't think there'll be any issues. Likewise, I think United are happy third. I think there's going to be a big gap between the top three teams. Then we have a bit of a gaggle then. So I reckon it's going to be a Liverpool fourth. Mainly for the reasons I kind of mentioned there. I reckon Newcastle will be fifth. And on that point, then I'm going to put Chelsea sixth. I do think they're going to come good. I really, really do think they're going to come good. It might take some time though. I reckon Villa are going to finish ahead of Brighton though. That's my kind of I suppose the proverbial hot take. I think once this Villa team starts singing, depending on what happens with Brighton and the Casado stuff, I think like those two are going to end up in Europe regardless anyway, one way or another.
No, I agree with that. I think the main difference between Villa and Brighton is that Villa haven't spent the summer avoiding getting fucking pillaged.
That's true.
So they've been able to actually quietly slip under the radar and recruit and have a good preseason, whereas Brighton have been like fending off like the fax machine with a fucking steaming red hot poker. It's coming at us again. Fucking kill it. What the hell?
Why is it making the noise?
They don't die.
Fair point. Fair point. Next up then is I'm going to throw Brentford in on 10th. Just a safe bet, really. I think that's the best they're going to do, especially with Tony suspended for the first half of the season. Then I'm going to go for my hot takes here. So I reckon Bournemouth are going to be 11th. So again, we haven't mentioned them. They've been very quiet, but they have been low-key quite good in their signings. Like very young, very English signings, very clearly intended for sell-ons. So the Max Aarons signed today from Norwich, and they've also signed Alex Scott from Bristol. So two very good signings. A lot of
I will say that Alex Scott is great pedigree as a name in football. So
it's bound to be a success. It's bound to be a success. Like
yeah. Based on that alone, if I had known that when I was making my table today, I did not get that in my notifications. I probably would have boosted him up to like 5th.
Yeah, you were busy training. To be fair, like I mean, we won't hold that against you. You know, to be fair. Another team I think are going to be safe as houses are going to be Nottingham Forest. I think they're going to be 12th. Like I don't think there's going to be as big a relegation scrap as last year. I really, really don't, because for the most part, like, and we were kind of mentioning this off camera a bit, there's been some teams that are very clearly declining, and they are not fit for the Premier League anymore. In the same way that Southampton just fell off a cliff, like Leeds and Leicester last year, there's a few teams that are going the same way, and it's going to be very evident. Likewise, I think Palace are going to be safe as houses. Fulham, I'm actually going to throw in here at 14th. I think the Mitrovic saga is going to roll on. So no matter which way that ends, I don't think it's going to do Fulham good. So they might be in a bit of trouble over the year. Burnley are going to be safe in 15th. And I'd say just narrowly avoiding relegation will be Everton in 17th. And who else have I got missing here? West Ham in 16th. I think West Ham in particular are going to struggle early on in the year because, like I said, they're losing their midfield practically. They've taken their sweet ass time replacing them, and the Europa League this year in particular is going to kill them because they're just not equipped for it. After losing all their kind of star players, this is not the same team that won the Conference League. So I think they're really going to struggle with that. And actually, my other hot take is that Moyes will be first out the door in terms of sackings, because I reckon it's between him or the director of football, and they just recently hired the director of football. So I think we know where that's going to go for Moisey. Next up then is I'm going to have Luton Town finishing 18th. I'm going to have Wolves finishing 19th because it's very evident they're going down, for in my view, because they haven't replaced the players they've sold. Lopetegui saw the writing on the wall and fucked off. And I think Gary O'Neill is happy to take the gig on the hope for a rebuild next season. And I think by far, I think the worst team we're going to see in a long, long time is going to be Sheffield United. They've sold their best striker and their best midfielder in the space of a week because they need the money. They are stuck for FFP at the minute. So they are here for the Premier League money, parachute payments, and then come back again in 2 years' time, hopefully. So I think they're going to have a Derby County level of season. I hope I'm wrong, because I do like Sheffield United generally, but I think they're fucked. Royally fucked.
Okay.
Yep. Neil, you are up next. What would you like to throw in as your champions?
Fucking Arsenal. Get us in right top of the fucking table where we should be. Keep the faith, you fuckers.
I love the optimism. I really, really do.
That's
the hope that kills you, Neil.
It's the hope that kills me.
This is the Premier League we're talking about, not the WSL, just to be clear.
I just get right back in. I don't care.
Let's do the double, Neil. Let's do the WSL. Double.
Get fucking in. Yeah, I think we'll win it.
Okay.
Fuck everyone else. Man City in second.
Okay.
Now, in all fairness, we might only beat them by like fucking goal difference. But hey, they've won the league on goal difference and it didn't bother them. I'll have Manchester United in third.
Okay.
I think they're going to have a very good season. I really do think. And it's purely, we've spoken about them earlier on. I think it's purely off the back of Ten Hag. I've got Liverpool in fourth. I think that midfield is going to struggle a bit at the start and then it'll click and then boom.
Yep.
I have Chelsea in fifth. I think they're going to come good. I think they're going to do really, really fucking well. And again, we said it before as well, but they've got the best fullbacks in the league in James and fucking Chilwell. They're just going to be. It's going to be a brilliant base for them to spring off of. 6, I'll have Newcastle.
Okay.
I think they're going to do really well. I'll agree with you and apparently the Guardian writers. I'll have Villa in 7th. I think they're going to do really well. Really, really, really well. I have Brighton in 8th.
Yeah.
I think they'll stay there. I have Spurs 9th. Brentford in 10th.
Yeah.
Forest in 11th. I think I don't think they're gonna have a terrible season. I think they'll be just fine, particularly with Matty Turner in goal, saving all them shots. He'd be a good one
Like
for FA.
I don't know if you've mentioned that just on that transfer. I think he's a brilliant shot stopper, and that Forest is like their defense allow shots.
Yeah.
So I just think, excited to see how he works out there because I really rate him as a shot stopping goalkeeper.
Yeah, he's fantastic. He's just not good with the ball at his feet. He'll admit to that himself.
It's nice to see us all optimistic about Forest's chances. Like I think I genuinely did like Forest last year, especially towards the end. They really seemed to click there, So yeah.
I have Palace in 12th, led by that whippersnapper Roy Hodgson.
To be fair, he seems to be having a lovely time.
He's having a great time there. Well, though, to be honest with you, when you're 76, like you're having a great time when you wake up in the morning. Like you're okay. Like
fair point.
I have Burnley 13th.
Okay.
That's how high up I think they'll go.
Yeah.
And now, in all fairness, while we did wax lyrical about how good Burnley are and how good Company is and how well they've recruited and how good their team is, I think they'll get to 13th purely by virtue of the fact that the remaining 7 teams are just going to be fucking disaster cases. They'll just get there. They'll just ascend to the pile by being like the strongest cockroach. So underneath them, I'll have West Ham.
Yeah.
Like they're just gonna be a basket. I think they've spent too late with the Bryce money, and I think it's not going to click until maybe January for them.
Maybe, yeah.
So yeah, that's it. 15th, I have Wolves.
Ooh, okay.
And no, I'm basing that purely off the fact I had Wolves going down when I heard Lopetegui was at the door. Oh no, when I heard when he was at the door. But they're getting Gary O'Neill in.
Yeah.
So I really rate him. I think he's a fantastic manager. That's purely on him. That's just him. That's not any of the fucking players.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair point, yeah.
You'll get a song out of that team. It won't be a good one, but it'll be one that'll keep them up, I reckon. Fulham are going to be the 16th, I reckon. They need to sort their shit out. I think they're going to be gone. 17th, I have Bournemouth.
Okay.
Don't reckon that's going to go well for them there. And my bottom 3 are Everton, Luton, and Sheffield.
In that order?
Yep.
Okay, so we have another. We're pretty comprehensive that Luton and Sheffield are going down. It seems, bar Burkbot, who seems very optimistic for their sake.
No, but, I think like much has been said. Sheffield have decided to spend their first season in the Premier League, the most competitive division in world football, by selling off all their best players. And Luton just don't have it. They just like they're gonna give it a good try. I reckon they're gonna come out all guns blazing, and they might even claim actually a good scalp by Christmas. I reckon Spurs are there for the taking. I reckon they'll probably beat something like they'll do Spurs away or something like that, and then they'll like but it'll just peter away as the rest of the league just cranks into gear and goes, oh yeah, you can actually hit these heights. And with Everton, I think it's just time to put just put an end to this pathetic hoedown. It's just it's not funny anymore. It's still funny. I'm
nearly sure I'm right with this, but it's worth noting as well that I'm nearly sure this is their last full season at Goodison Park. Because I think the Bradley Moore Stadium is ready for next year, or is supposed to be ready for next year. So, like, could you imagine that the Goodison send off is them getting relegated, like, and having to like start the championship in your brand new 55,000 seater stadium?
Oh, as a Liverpool fan, you must be loving this.
But see, I'm not. You see, I'm a traditionalist. I want like the Merseyside derbies in the Premier League, mainly because it's like 6 extra points for us in the league.
You
Like
do
if they're relegated, we have to try again. Like
you do realize that like they're up in October for a hearing to see whether or not they breached the profit and sustainability rules, and they will get docked points if they're found guilty.
yeah, but
Yeah.
that it's possible. Yeah,
So,
but I mean, like,
like you're criticizing Burkboffer or optimism. You're incredibly optimistic thinking everything could get docked points and still finish 17th.
that is just how badly I'm judging Luton, Sheffield, and Wolves. Like I'm not even joking when I'm saying Sheffield could get fucking minus points without the fucking dock without an FFP violation. Like that's how bad they're going to be, in my view. So we do.
Right, I've just pulled a hamstring. I didn't warm up
no,
enough, obviously, so I'm gonna just sub myself off here.
Yeah.
I'm just missing out on Aaron and Dave's. Well, who cares? All right, good night, guys.
Take care.
Right, that's a shootout. Fucked anyway. We got away with it after 3. So fair enough. As Burkbot accurately spoiled there, we do have some new blood joining the podcast. Hopefully over the season. That being Aaron and Dave. Dave, you've heard already on the show, talking waxing lyrical about Scottish football for a while, and Aaron, we're bringing in as a Man United representative because, good Lord knows we don't hear enough about them in the fucking podcast business. So, we'll start with him then for his picks for the Premier League. And Neil, you'll be shocked at this, but Aaron has also gone for an Arsenal win.
Actually, that's where we jinx us now. Fucking scum.
Yeah, to be fair, he's gone for a top 4 that's very familiar. City 2nd, United 3rd, and Liverpool 4th. However, he is the only one.
Liverpool might finish 4th just by voodoo based on this.
But honestly, I genuinely think we're the 4th best team in the league. That is our level at this moment. You know, like if we get anything higher than 4th, that's kind of an accomplishment for us. That's genuinely being honest. You know, look, even without the Premier League, it's the Europa League commitments as well. So, like, whether we make it to the end of that final of that league or not is going to determine where we finish as well. So, either way, I think we're hedging our bets being back in the Champions League one way or another. You know, but no, I think 4th is a fair result for us, to be honest. Now, outside of that, he is currently the only person to commit to an Aston Villa in the top 5.
He does loving it. He does. He's gotten hardcore into Emery now.
He does. He is erect. Good evening.
Yes, he is. He's very erect in the evenings. It's weird. It's like you've discovered one of your mates is now into a weird kink and you're just not really sure how to talk about it. Fair play.
Like, so you like it as well? When did you first learn about this? I think it was during the time when he was in Villarreal. I've been there. I've been there since Sevilla. Like, yeah. Oh fuck. So yes, he's gone for a Aston Villa potentially Champions League team next season.
Mm-hmm.
He's also gone for Brighton to finish 6th, which is intriguing in its own right because they are going to beat Newcastle to that as well. So Newcastle only good for 7th. That's leaving Chelsea 8th. You were talking about just by association. Spurs are 9th. So all across the board at the moment for us. Likewise, Brentford are 10th in his pick. He's actually optimistic on Fulham's hopes. He's reckoning an 11th place finish for them. Burnley 12th. Palace 13th. Wolves, you think, are going to be safe in 14th. West Ham 15th. Nottingham Forest 16th. Bournemouth just above the danger zone. Luton Town 18th. Everton 19th. And
Whoa.
Sheffield United 20th. We start to see a recurring theme here, by all accounts. So let's see then. We have one more entry on that, and that is Dave. And in this proverbial shootout to determine who we think wins the Premier League, if we're disregarding the actual paid journalists who research this shit, just between the 5 of us, we have 2 votes for Man City and 2 votes for Arsenal. So who gets the winning vote? According to Dave, it's Arsenal. He reckons Arsenal's going to do it. We're all hopeful beyond hope that Arsenal will break the curse. We shall see. And naturally, that means Man City will be runners up. However, he thinks he's a bit of a contrarian here, Neil. He thinks Liverpool are going to be third.
He has much hope for Dommy Slobbins.
I mean, who doesn't really with that name? No, fucking distant cousins of Bilbo Baggins, apparently. He has Newcastle fourth, Chelsea fifth, and here's a hot take: Man United sixth.
Ooh.
That is a hot take.
Isn't that just like they just born Aaron though?
Like, you know what? Chances are yes. Like
Aaron's just gonna read that. He's going to go, Dave, you fucking cunt.
Oh god, I can imagine the WhatsApp group after this. Again, sensibly enough, where he has Brighton down as seventh in the league table. However, he is the most optimistic when it comes to Tottenham because he reckons they're going to be eighth out of all of us picking ninth. Not sure why, just is. I suppose you have to ask him that question himself. He is also the most pessimistic when it comes to Aston Villa because he reckons they are going to finish ninth. Outside of that, then is going to be Brentford, who are perennially 10th according to our predictions here. Then we have Fulham, same footing as last time, 11th. Then we have Palace 12th. Then we have West Ham 13th, Burnley 14th, and Bournemouth, safe as houses, in 15th. Nottingham Forest 16th, and surviving Everton. Just about. So that leaves us then with Luton in 18th, Sheffield 19th, and Wolves 20th. Bottom of the table. So he's not quite on the Gary O'Neill gravy train as things stand, Neil, going by the current predictions.
That's something else.
So that's where we look at. So, like, on the balance of things, the majority of us on the podcast here are hoping, perhaps beyond hope, of an Arsenal win. Not major shocks. So I suppose like kind of on average, the average finishing positions, we reckon it's a 2-horse race between Arsenal and Man City.
Well, let's face it, you're hoping for an Arsenal win as well. You just don't.
I'm being pessimistic, really. Like, you know, like if it's a head over heart decision, like head says Man City, heart says Arsenal. To be fair, I'd take fucking Nottingham Forest win the Premier League if it meant Man City didn't win it. Overall, we're thinking Man United are safe in third. We're thinking Liverpool is safe in fourth, and then it's a bit of a mix then of who we think is fifth, whether it be Chelsea in the balance. Chelsea 2 picks. Newcastle is in the mixture there as well. Villa, Brighton, quite an interesting mix there. And then pretty much whoever divvies out then from the top 8, whether it be Villa or Brighton, just in the conversation. Spurs, I think the kind of current trend there is that Spurs are 9th, just not really a factor in the league. Again, I don't know if that has a lot to do with the Harry Kane situation or just that the Postecoglou revolution is going to take a bit more time than expected.
It is going to take a lot of time, and be aware, like, a lot of these predictions would have been done before because Kane only accepted the deal today. So I'd be kind of interested, to go back and ask people. I was like, is this affecting you thinking that Spurs are going to go 9th? Because let's face it, without Kane last season, they definitely weren't finishing 8th.
Oh, that's almost certainly true. Yes.
So like, I don't see how, having lost a 30-goal a season striker, they're going to finish they're only going to go down 1 place. Yeah.
And then on average, we all reckon Brentford are solid in 10th place. The mid table is pretty much where, as you see it, Burnley we all reckon are going to be safe, which is nice to see that we all are back in a promoted team. But on the flip side of that, we all comprehensively believe, on average, that Luton are down. We have 5 votes for Luton to go down. Sheffield United likely down as well. 4 to 5 pick us there, and then either Everton, Bournemouth, or Wolves to join them. It's a real race at the bottom there. I think that kind of, like, going by our prediction there, that's kind of what the relegation scrap looks like. So that should be interesting to see which random team joins that, because again, their predictions were way off last year. So I'm happy to be proven wrong again this time. But yeah, that's where we think the Premier League is going to go. So with that, then I think we're going to wrap this podcast up, Neil. We are primed and ready to go for the new season to start. I believe it's starting tomorrow night between Burnley and Manchester City. So that should be a nice little test there for Guardiola and company, and indeed company. Now, when we come back on this podcast, we will actually not be talking about the Premier League, but we are going to be reviewing the Women's World Cup, which is still ongoing. We've had shocks and surprises and spills and thrills and everything in between. But we're down to the final 8 at time of recording. In fact, as this goes out, the quarterfinals will have started. So we'll have a good idea of who is still in it to win it. But that'll be our next podcast. And then after that, then we'll be doing our transfer rundown, giving grades out to all the clubs that deserve it, and then bollocking the ones that don't. So you can look forward to that then before we get into our full swing of things on the football podcast routinely. But until then, thank you all very much for listening. Neil, thank you very much for your company tonight. Greatly appreciated as ever. And of course, thanks for Burkboff for that last minute Mark Noble-esque penalty taking. And of course, then thanks to Aaron and Dave for sending their predictions for the league table to come. You will hear more from them as the season progresses. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening. We are doing these podcasts every, hopefully, 2 weeks around the football season. So you can listen to them exclusively on YouTube on Monday Madness. There's a new podcast tab, so you can listen to these on the go if you like. Keep an eye on our socials on Twitter, not Twitter, X, as the big fucking virgin himself calls it. It's Twitter, whatever the fuck. At Monday Madness LP, or just subscribe to us on YouTube and put the bell on and switch the bell on, and they will know then when these podcasts do go out. We try and put them out as quick as we can, because pretty much most of our opinions are out of date by the time they come out. So until then, guys, hopefully you'll enjoy the new football season coming up, and it won't be as tedious as I fear it is. But until then, folks, thank you all for listening, because all of that was Liquid Football.
You.